friends, welcome to Tarun IS. Today we will be discussing daily current affairs of 9th of November 2022. So let's start with the first news of the day. The first news is about the mother tongue survey that is conducted in India by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So let us look into the details of the survey. Why this has been news? Because the Ministry of Home Affairs has completed the Mother Tongue Survey of India with field videography of the country's 576 languages. Now why this survey was conducted? The Mother Tongue Survey was conducted in order to preserve and analyze the original flavor of each indigenous mother tongue. It was planned to set up a web archive at the National Informatics Center. Now, what is this Mother Tongue Survey of India? It is the project that surveys the mother tongue, which are returned consistently across 2 and more census decades. Now, what is this mother tongue? Mother tongue is something which is normally spoken by the people at their home, which a person learns during their formative years. So that is what the mother tongue means, right? So, and the Mother Tongue Survey also documents the linguistic feature of the selected languages. The linguistic features. How many mother tongue are there in our country? According to the analysis of the 2011 linguistic census data, in 2018, more than 19,500 languages or dialects are spoken in India. The category mother tongue is basically a designation that is provided by the respondent, and it need not to be identical with the actual linguistic medium. Linguistic means something which is related with the language, and linguistic medium means something which is spoken by the person in order to communicate with other people. So it may be that the mother tongue of a person could be something else. For example, a person living in the state of Punjab, let's say, this is just for an illustration purpose, he speaks Punjabi at home, but in order to communicate with other people in the northern India, he speaks mostly either in Hindi. He goes to Haryana, he starts speaking the Hindi dialect Haryanvi. He goes to the Awadh region, and he start speaking the Braj Bhasha or the Avadhi. And if he goes to the Bihar region, then he starts speaking with people either in Bhojpuri, in Maithili, in Magdi, in Ardh Magdi, in Santhali, etc. etc. So the language which a person speaks in order to communicate with other people is called as a linguistic medium. However, the person's mother tongue is Punjabi. There's something which he has learnt throughout his childhood or her childhood, and something which he or she uses to speak with the members of the family. So that was Punjabi. This is only an example. Similarly, if a person living in the southern India speaks Dravidian languages or tribal languages which has a Dravidian origin, right? So for example, a person living in Tamil Nadu may be speaking Tamilian at home, but when he comes to the northern India or the other parts of the state or perhaps the neighboring state, he starts speaking either in English or in any other language that people would understand. So this is the linguistic medium, and the mother tongue is something which is spoken by the person at home. Now, after subjecting these 19,000 approximately 500 languages returns to the linguistic scrutiny, then they are edited, they are rationalized, and then they are grouped into 121 mother tongues. So now there is a possibility that all these 19,000 languages which are being surveyed may be similar to one or the other language. For example, when we say Hindi is a language, and then there are dialects of Hindi. For example, Haryanvi is a dialect of Hindi. For example, Bhojpuri is also a dialect of Hindi. For example, when we speak this Braj Bhasha, then it is also considered as one of the dialects of Hindi, Rajasthani, etc. etc. So Hindi, it gets varied, like from state to state there is a variation that you would observe in Hindi language, and then suddenly those variations will accumulate and then a new language will form. May not be a completely new language, but a new language is synthesized. So this is how a language is transformed, a new language is formed, etc. etc. So after surveying these 19,000 languages, after the linguistic scrutiny, they are edited and then they are clubbed together into this 121 mother tongues. So in India, according to the 2011 linguistic survey, there are 121 mother tongues. However, there are more than 19,000 languages or dialects which are spoken in India. All right. Now, how many mother tongues are there? So 121, like I said, those 19,000 languages, they were clubbed together and they are formed into these 121 mother tongues. Hindi is, according to the census of 2011, Hindi is the most widely spoken mother tongue, with approximately 52.8 crore people speaking. That means 43.6% of the population declaring Hindi as their mother tongue. Next comes the Bengali, in which 9.7 crore people, that means which accounts for 8% of the population, speak Bengali. So we have got Hindi followed by Bengali. So this is how the language are spoken in India. Now let's talk about the mother tongue in education. We know that Article 350B of our Constitution calls for the linguistic officer. Alright, so according to the Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, National Curriculum Framework for the Foundational Stages of the Education, which is launched by the Education Minister, has recommended that mother tongue should be the primary medium of instruction in schools up to the age of 8 years. So this was about the mother tongue. Now we shall move on to the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Now, why this was in news? The Black Sea Grain Initiative was in news because Russia has rejoined this initiative, and Mr. Putin said that Moscow would suspend but not end its relationship with the deal. So the Black Sea Grain Initiative, it endeavors to tackle the escalating food prices which emanated from the supply chain disruption because of the Russia-Ukraine war. And Russia and Ukraine, they are considered as the world baskets for the food grain. Especially for the West Asian countries, and that means the Gulf countries, and for the Sub-Saharan African countries. The deal, it was brokered by the United Nations and Turkey on July 2022, and it provided a safe maritime humanitarian corridor for the Ukrainian export. The central idea basically was to calm the market by ensuring the adequate supply of the food grains and also limiting the food price inflation. Now let us see that why this deal is important. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of the Humanitarian Affairs, approximately 10.1 million tons of the grains have been shipped since the initiative it commenced. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, which is considered as the food arm of the United Nations, along with this body called World Food Program. The food price index, which it assesses monthly the change in international prices of the basket of the food commodities, it fell for the 6th consecutive month in a row during the September assessment year post the signing of the deal called Black Sea Grain Initiative. All right. The importance of the initiative is because it has been credited to having made a huge difference to the global cost of the people which are living under the crisis, especially post-COVID. So about 44% of the shipments, which include such as corn, wheat, rapeseed and sunflower oil, they are amongst the other, which reached high-income countries including Spain, Netherlands, Italy, and 28% of it reached to the low and lower middle income countries such as Egypt, Iran, Sudan, Kenya, others, and 27% of it reached to the upper middle countries in the Gulf, upper middle countries, for example, China and Bulgaria, etc. Now, the importance of this deal, it lies if we assume that the deal would be suspended. So what would happen if the deal is suspended? If the suspension of the deal was expected to reintroduce the price pressure on the food grains, and especially that of the food, with inventories being historical low. So now, why do we consider Black Sea is of utmost importance? We know that post 2014, since 2014, the Crimea Peninsula, it is under the administration of Moscow, that is Russia. After the Russia annexed the Crimea Peninsula in the year 2014, and Black Sea is being considered as a medium for the transportation of the food grains and the edible oils from the Ukraine, and especially the sunflower oil, which is considered, and for which the Ukraine is the largest exporter. If the Black Sea Grain Initiative had not been signed, then it could have particularly impacted the countries in the Western Asia and the Africa. For example, the countries such as Egypt, Turkey, Lebanon, Sudan, and Yemen, who have benefited from the resumption of the deal, and those countries who were particularly dependent upon the Russia and the Ukrainian export. The next news of the day is about the Shyama Prasad Mukherji Rurban mission. So why this was in news? The Aibawk cluster in the Aizwal district of the Mizoram, it has become the first cluster to have completed under the Shyama Prasad Mukherji Rurban mission. Now let's see what this mission is all about. In the year 2016, the Prime Minister had launched this scheme under the Ministry of Rural Development. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. By centrally sponsored scheme means that half of the funds are given by the center and half of the funds are given by the state. And now this contribution will differ from state to state. For hilly states and the northeastern states, the contribution is 90:10. That means the 10% of the funds are given by the state and 90% of the funds are given by the center. So this is what the centrally sponsored scheme is. When we say it is a central sector scheme, that means it is completely funded by the center. So the basic aim of the Rurban mission is to preserve and nurture the essence of the rural community life with its focus on the equity and inclusiveness without compromising the facilities which are perceived to be essentially urban in nature, and thus creating a cluster of the Rurban villages. That means it is providing the urban amenities in the rural areas. The Rurban mission, it aimed at stimulating the local economic development, to enhance the basic services in the rural areas, and to create a well-planned Rurban cluster. It aimed to develop 300 clusters in the country holistically by providing the economic, social, and physical infrastructure and facilities which corresponds to the urban way of life. The urban clusters in our country, they will be identified across the country, and the areas which show the increasing signs of urbanization, for example, increasing population density, high level of non-farm employment, presence of growing economic activities, and other socio-economic parameters, those clusters, they are selected to be developed under the Shyama Prasad Mukherji Rurban mission. The Rurban areas, they refer to the cluster of 15 to 20 villages which have about 30 to 40 lakh of population. These clusters will be geographically contiguous to the Gram Panchayat, with a population of about 25,000 to 50,000 in plain areas and in coastal areas, and a population of 5,000 to 15,000 in desert, hilly or tribal areas. The state government has the responsibility of identifying such clusters in accordance with the framework that is prepared and implemented by the Ministry of Rural Development. The mission basically has two fund streams. First, it has the convergence through the various central sector schemes. That means all the central sector schemes will be converged together in order to implement the Rurban mission. And there will be a critical gap funding. That means the critical gap funding of rupees 30 crore per clusters for the non-tribal clusters and rupees 15 crore per cluster for the tribal and the hilly state are to be given. The next news of the day is about the rainbow. Now, according to one of the research, the changes in the cloud cover and the liquid precipitation due to the increased greenhouse gas emission, they are projected to lead a net increase in the global mean annual rainbow days. Now, let's talk about what this rainbow is. Now, basically, rainbow is an atmospheric optical phenomena which is noticed post rain when there is a sunshine. Now, this rainbow, being an optical phenomena, it depends upon the total internal reflection. Now, what this total internal reflection is? So, the droplets, the water droplets, they act like a prism. So, when the light, it falls on this water droplet, it gets internally reflected. And with numerous water droplets in the atmosphere, the sun rays, they get internally reflected, and we see what commonly known as the rainbow, and in the physics languages it is called as the VIBGYOR, which is the abbreviation of the colors seen in the rainbow. So rainbows, they can be viewed around the fog, they can be viewed around sea spray or waterfalls. So wherever there is a combination of water droplets and plus sun rays, there we can observe rainbow. So basically, rainbow is an optical illusion, and it does not actually exist in a specific spot in the sky. So now, what is the linkage between the rainbow and the climate change? Now, basically, the human activities such as burning of fossil fuels they are warming the atmosphere, and they are changing the patterns and the amounts of the rainfall and the cloud cover. The climate change will thus it alters the distribution of the rainbow occurrence by affecting the evaporation and convergence of the moisture, which will alter the precipitation and the cloud cover. The next news of the day is about the greenwashing. Now, why this was in news? The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he has warned the private corporation to desist from the practice of greenwashing and to mend their ways, and there will be zero tolerance for greenwashing. Now, what this greenwashing means? Basically, greenwashing is the term which is used to describe the tendencies of the big corporation to mark their activities as environment friendly. However, these activities and these claims, they are unverified, misleading, and they can be dubious at times. So basically, why these big corporations use the phenomena of greenwashing to boost their image and to garner benefits, but these activities, they do nothing to prevent the climate change, elevate it or mitigate it. The next news of the day is about the Mission Prarambh. Now, recently, India's first privately developed launch vehicle by a Hyderabad-based company is named Skyroot Vikram S. It is going to make its maiden flight from the country's only spaceport at the Sri Harikota. Now, so far, ISRO had the responsibility for launching the spacecraft and satellites, and private players in the space industry, they had the minimal presence. Now, with the establishment of the InSpace and the National Space Corporation Limited, which is the wholly owned subsidiary of the Indian government, the private players are set to increase their presence in the space sector. So, and this is going to be the first flight by any privately developed launch vehicle. So, and this has been named as the Mission Prarambh. Now, this mission, it will see the Vikram S, which is the launch vehicle, to launch customer satellites in a suborbital flight. Now, basically, what does this suborbital flight means? So, when we want to eject out from the Earth atmosphere, we have to have a certain velocity which is known as the escape velocity. So, if we want to launch a vehicle in the exosphere, so we have to have we have to have a escape velocity so as to evade the gravitational force of the earth. But in case of the suborbital flight, they are fast enough to reach the lining of the exosphere and the endosphere, but they are not fast enough to escape the earth atmosphere, so they have to basically come back to the earth. So this is what is meant by the suborbital flight. And recently this company by Jeff Bezos, they had demonstrated this suborbital flight because of the increasing trend of space tourism. So the Vikram, which is the launch vehicle, it is going to use various solid and the cryogenic fuels, and it is going to carry somewhere between 290 kg to 560 kg of payload in the sun synchronous orbit. So as you can see here, this is basically a transition zone between the earth atmosphere, or we can say the up to the limit at which the gravitational pull of the earth is active, and this is the exosphere, and this region is known as the suborbital region. So where the launch vehicle would go, and it will then come back or re-enter into the earth atmosphere. So this diagram shows the suborbital trajectory. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching Tarun IAS. Have a nice day.